playground, we debate. Critics talking, we relate. Hot takes, no, we don't wait. Spit the truth, we captivate. Show me what you got, don't hesitate. Critics playground, it's our fate. Talk the talk, don't you be late. On the stage, we elevate. Voices loud, we dominate. Critics bow, they can dictate. Bust a move, don't.
Welcome to the Critics Playground Debate Review. In today's heated segment, we dive into a topic that has sparked global controversy and debate: U.S. President Donald Trump's imposition of tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China. With the global economy hanging in the balance, this debate centers around a critical question. Will these tariffs bring the U.S. the economic strength it seeks, or will they ignite a devastating trade war that shakes the very foundations of global commerce? We'll explore both sides of the argument to shed light on this complex issue and give you a clear understanding of what tariffs really mean in international trade. What are tariffs? An educational breakdown. Before we dive into the debate, let's first understand exactly what a tariff is. A tariff is a tax imposed by a government on imported goods or services. The goal of tariffs is to make imported goods more expensive, which encourages consumers to purchase domestically produced goods instead. Governments typically use tariffs to protect local industries from foreign competition, promote economic self-sufficiency, or even retaliate against unfair trade practices. There are two main types of tariffs. 1. Revenue tariffs. These are mainly designed to raise money for the government. 2. Protective tariffs. These are meant to protect domestic industries by making foreign products more expensive and less competitive in the local market. Tariffs can have a range of effects on both the economies of the countries imposing them and the ones being targeted. For example, while tariffs may boost local industries in the short term, they can also lead to higher prices for consumers and strained relations between trading partners. History of tariffs and trade relations. The use of tariffs by U.S. presidents is nothing new. Historically, tariffs have been deployed to protect domestic industries, correct trade imbalances, and promote economic growth. However, Trump's decision to impose a 25% tariff on goods from Canada and Mexico and a 10% tariff on products from China marks a more aggressive approach than we've seen in recent decades. His rationale? Strengthen local manufacturing, reduce dependence on foreign goods, and address national security concerns, particularly related to illegal immigration and drug trafficking. But this strategy is far from universally accepted. While some see it as a bold and necessary step to ensure American interests are prioritized, others fear it could backfire and lead to a devastating global economic shift. Debate 1. The economic impact on Mexico and Canada. Per tariff argument, Trump's supporters of the tariffs argue that the U.S. has been at a disadvantage in trade with its neighbors and China for too long. By imposing these tariffs, President Trump is making a much-needed move to level the playing field. The tariffs on Canada and Mexico are aimed at reducing the massive trade imbalances that have contributed to job losses in U.S. manufacturing sectors. Trump's supporters also emphasize that these tariffs are not just economic tools, but also leverage for negotiations over issues like border security and illegal immigration, which have been long-standing challenges for the U.S. Anti-tariff argument. Critics of the tariffs. Critics, however, argue that these tariffs will have catastrophic consequences for Mexico, Canada, and the U.S. economy. Mexico, with its manufacturing sector closely tied to U.S. supply chains, is particularly vulnerable. Cities like Ciudad Juarez, which rely on factories producing goods for U.S. markets, could see significant job losses and economic instability. With 60% of formal employment in the region tied to the maquiladora industry, tariffs could make many operations unprofitable. In Canada, the tariffs on oil exports could result in higher prices for American consumers, particularly in the energy sector, which has been a strong pillar of U.S. economic growth. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has expressed concerns over these tariffs, promising a strong retaliatory response. The idea that these tariffs could be used as leverage for greater political gains may result in a breakdown of bilateral relations, making cross-border trade even more complicated and costly. Debate 2. The purpose of the tariffs. Pro-tariff argument. Trump's supporters. Trump supporters believe the tariffs will ultimately benefit the U.S. economy. They argue that these tariffs will encourage companies to bring manufacturing back to the U.S., creating jobs for American workers. With tariffs on Chinese goods, the U.S. is tackling unfair trade practices such as intellectual property theft and currency manipulation. Trump's administration sees these tariffs as a means to correct imbalances in trade, reduce reliance on foreign imports, and generate much-needed revenue for the U.S. government. Anti-tariff argument: critics of the tariffs. Critics, on the other hand, contend that these tariffs are short-sighted and could hurt American consumers. As prices for goods from affected countries rise, American households will be forced to pay more for everyday products, from food to electronics. Instead of benefiting U.S. workers, these tariffs could lead to job losses in sectors that rely on cheap imports and global supply chains. Moreover, the real impact on the U.S. manufacturing sector is still uncertain, as many companies may choose to relocate operations to other low-cost countries rather than bring production back to the U.S. Additionally, the increased cost of living could undermine any gains in the domestic economy. Debate 3: Retaliation and potential trade war. Pro-tariff argument: Trump's supporters. Trump's team has repeatedly emphasized that tariffs are a negotiating tool designed to make the U.S. less dependent on foreign trade deals. Supporters believe that other countries, particularly China, have taken advantage of free trade agreements for far too long, and now it's time for the U.S. to level the playing field. By applying pressure, they argue, Trump will force other nations to address unfair practices and cooperate more closely with U.S. demands on issues ranging from trade to border security. Anti-tariff argument: critics of the tariffs. On the opposite side, experts warn that these tariffs may spark a full-scale trade war, which would have catastrophic consequences for the U.S. economy and global trade. Countries like China, Mexico, and Canada have already signaled their intention to retaliate. Mexico has promised tariffs on U.S. products, including agricultural goods, which could harm U.S. farmers. China, in particular, has threatened to retaliate with tariffs on U.S. technology products, further complicating trade relations. If other nations follow suit, the global economy could experience a severe slowdown, with disrupted supply chains, inflation, and a marked decrease in international cooperation. Debate 4: The long-term global impact. Pro-tariff argument: Trump's supporters. Advocates for the tariffs argue that the long-term benefits will outweigh the short-term costs. By forcing countries like China to adapt and rework their trade policies, the U.S. can secure a more balanced and fair trade environment. The reduction in dependence on foreign imports will also encourage U.S. manufacturers to innovate and create new jobs, while fostering a sense of national pride and economic self-sufficiency. The tariffs, they believe, will ultimately boost the American economy and give the U.S. a stronger position in the global marketplace. Anti-tariff argument: critics of the tariffs. Critics, however, emphasize the far-reaching consequences these tariffs could have on the global economy. The tariffs threaten to unravel decades of trade agreements that have helped stabilize the global economy. If a full trade war ensues, the cost of goods worldwide will rise, and businesses will face uncertainty in supply chains. This could reduce the overall efficiency of global production and lead to a recession. Furthermore, the potential for greater political tension between major powers could destabilize international relations, resulting in long-term geopolitical risks. Global economic consequences: a fractured trade landscape. Pro-tariff argument: Trump's supporters. Trump's tariffs are seen as a necessary reset for the global economy, aiming to stop the unfair exploitation of American labor and resources. By punishing bad trade practices and pushing for fairer agreements, Trump supporters believe the global trade system will ultimately be more balanced and just. This approach, while risky, is seen as a way to protect American interests, even if it means rattling the current trade order. Anti-tariff argument: critics of the tariffs. The anti-tariff camp, however, warns that the disruption caused by these policies could leave lasting scars on the global economy. Retaliation from other countries could lead to increased costs for U.S. consumers, while the loss of free trade agreements could reduce the U.S.'s global influence. The resulting economic fragmentation could lead to inefficiencies and a decline in international collaboration, ultimately harming both consumers and businesses worldwide. Conclusion: a critical juncture in global trade. As President Trump's tariffs loom large on the horizon, the world stands at a critical juncture. The debate rages on over whether these tariffs will be a catalyst for economic renewal or a dangerous step toward a global trade war. On one hand, supporters believe this bold move will strengthen American manufacturing and address long-standing trade imbalances. On the other hand, critics argue that the tariffs will lead to retaliatory actions, higher prices, and disruptions to the global economy. The potential for a trade war and its subsequent impact on the world's economies is undeniable. The coming months will reveal whether the U.S. can navigate this tricky path toward achieving its objectives without causing irreparable damage to the global trade system. In the end, the outcome may not only define Trump's legacy, but shape the future of international trade for decades to come. Stay tuned for more insights and analysis right here on the Critics Playground Debate Review.